Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the digital event where we'll be talking about how you can track, analyze, and optimize logistics for your business. So let's get started. Myself, Sumit Ahuja, who is working with Searce as a product consultant lead for location intelligence practice. And I also have Luke Sicaria, who is founder and CEO of Pneumatic as well as the speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So some ground rules, please keep yourself muted, and whatever questions you have, please put it in the chat room. We'll be taking questions at the end. So this will be the agenda for today. We'll brief you about our organization, Searce and Numadic, and we'll take you through market overview for logistic vertical, as well as provide you some solutions on top of it. And we'll deep dive and show you the demo as well, followed by conclusion and then some Q&A, right? So yeah, let's get started. Many of you guys are here in the logistics space. Searce started out 14 years back doing data analytics for logistic companies, which gradually saw us grow. Today, we work with over 2,000 clients, and we are close to 700 innovators and working with clients across all verticals. So you can see our journey, which is 14 plus years journey with Google Cloud. We started with G Suite, which is now Workspace, in 2006. Slowly and gradually, we started with GCP and location intelligence practice at Searce. And we also developed some in-house products like Happier Track, Recognic on top of Google Cloud and Google Maps platform. And when Google introduced some specialization back in 2018, we were one of the first partners to get the location-based specialization tag. Only 9 partners received this globally, and we were amongst them. This specialization directly relates to technical expertise, customer delight, and repeatable success. I'm also wanted to highlight that we have been quite lucky to be Google Partner of the Year 4 years consecutively. I was quite looking forward to us winning 2019 as well, but as you know, because of the COVID, everything got postponed. So even the Google event, which is known as Google Next, that also got postponed. Now I'll request Luke to tell us about Numadic.
Sure. Thanks, Sumit, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Sumit, thank you for the opportunity. And also want to thank the Google Maps team for making this possible. And looking forward to having this conversation with this group today. So a little bit about Numadic, my company. We formed about 5 years ago. We've been in the logistics industry for about 7 years in total. In the past 5 years, we've gone through, we've seen various different aspects of the logistics world, built up solutions ranging from starting from the fleet tracking space when we first began, evolving it significantly along the way in the mobility space, working in the fintech space now heavily. We've grown the platform to over 1 million users with a small team based in Goa of about 70 people, and of course a lot of collaborators and supporters like Google Maps and CS. Okay. Our main focus is of course in logistics, mobility, and fintech. So for today's presentation, we thought we'd do a little overview of how we see the market evolving and how we as a tech, a logistics technology company see the market versus how a tech-driven logistics company sees the market versus the general market itself. Okay. So first of all, I think we all recognize that logistics is digitizing rapidly. Okay. So this is not anything, this is not new news. There are many indicators for how it is digitizing, but one of the strongest indicators has been the heavy investment into technology for logistics by venture capital firms. Okay, and since 2014, we've seen this thing, we've seen these investments skyrocket, and of course, this has cascaded down to the actual availability of robust tools and technologies for enterprise transportation teams. Many of the tools built by startups a few years ago have now become commonplace in these companies. And we're seeing the evolution and the transformation, not just at the tech-driven logistics company level, but also at the tech-driven transportation team level within large enterprise. So it's a very interesting time to be here. And 5 or 6 years ago, when we were first beginning, we would never would have imagined that we'd actually reach this point so quick. Of course, COVID has had a big role to play in fast tracking things. See? Yeah. So when we look at this a little further, what we see is that the focus areas differ quite widely, mostly in the data side. Okay, we've got this pyramid of the level of automation of logistics, and at the bottom of the pyramid, the emphasis is more on manpower with some software to enable that manpower. Okay, as you get closer to the middle, there is an emphasis on automation software. There's an emphasis on reducing the number of the amount of manpower required to get a task done, and there is some emphasis on collecting of data. But most of it is retrospective usage of data rather than proactive usage of data. Okay. Then as you go to level 4 of automation within logistics, we see players like Convoy from the US, Uber Freight as well, Sender, and even some Indian companies starting to enter the space now, where data is being used not as a retrospective to decide how much to pay suppliers and how much to incentivize teams, but it's seen as a core aspect of making the transformation happen in real time. Okay, and finally we go all the way up to the ladder at the level 5, and only 2 companies, in our view, currently are operating at this level, and that too in certain geographies and in certain lanes: Amazon and the Manban Group from China. Okay, and what we see here is a heavy investment and heavy reliance on data, to the point where data is not just looking at information retrospectively. Is looking at information in real time, as well as prescriptively for the future, for how to automate logistics, not just plan, but also to automate logistics. Okay. Now, of course, we don't expect the entire market to transform overnight, but this Amazon effect, as it's called, is bound to trickle down and bound to have an impact. The good thing is, as we've seen over the years, there is definitely a strong interest, especially in the Indian market, towards digitization and ultimately automation. So in that shift from what was just a few years ago predominantly manual processes, and it's important to note as well that a lot of companies in India have been, even in the early days, let's say 14 or 15, 20 years ago, been investing in technologies to digitize. The emphasis now is getting increasingly transitioned over to visibility and traceability. But what do we mean by traceability and transparency? I mean, all of us know that GPS has been around for a long time. SIM-based tracking has come along as well in the past few years. What we're referring to in visibility, the term as it's utilized in a more developed market, is tools and data sources that allow visibility across third-party stakeholders. So it's not about one party mandating the use of certain technologies to its suppliers or to its teams. It's got multiple parties agreeing that they'll use a common platform or share data in a common way, so that the actual operations can be optimized across these stakeholders. What we commonly see in India is that GPS devices may be mandated by a large organization to its fleets, or fleets may be using GPS devices, but all of these are in different silos. And you might find a truck with 3 or 4 GPS devices because multiple different companies work with that truck or that fleet owner. In the visibility era, what we're seeing is a transition where the data becomes the key, the source of the data becomes the commodity, okay? And the sharing of the data is happening through stakeholders or technology partners that are entering the space, and they're making that data available at a fractional cost, without the need to invest in hardware, without the need to invest in specific implementation plans, focused only on the actual uses of the data via an API. So just narrowing this down a little bit, of course, because we have a 45-minute session today, and supply chain and logistics are quite large, just focusing on the transportation era as one of the verticals in which we address. We are seeing a big shift in the way things are getting done. So we did see investments heavily by large VC-funded tech startups in the logistics space that made efforts to build data access in the last 2 or 3 years. And we're slowly seeing that shift happening also in the enterprise space. Large, even traditional players making investments to actually have strong data pipelines to digitize their operations. So that shift is happening in terms of vehicle sourcing at the very basic level. This was predominantly a manual task, a lot of manual RFP effort involved in getting quotes, sourcing vehicles. And this is increasingly becoming digital, where rather than plugging into one network, it's plugging into multiple networks through API partners. Several leading online freight marketplaces in India have APIs through which you can connect. And what we're seeing is, rather than being limited to a few BAs or a few local agents and brokers, teams are able to now plug into nearly the entire network. If a vehicle is routinely flying from Delhi to Mumbai and there's a requirement in Mumbai, they should be known to operators in the Mumbai region. What we've seen as a challenge in the last few years, as the market was in nascent years, was that there were many smaller freight players, small freight marketplaces that were digital, but did not have nationwide coverage. But now there's increasing collaboration between these players, and that collaboration, as well as the standardizations in terms of the way data is being shared, is making it easier to optimize logistics across the country. So the three key areas we're seeing this happening is in vehicle sourcing, in price discovery, and ultimately also in load tracking.
Thanks, Luke, for throwing some light on the visibility data or the problems that we are facing currently in the logistics side. So moving forward, we will be talking about how we can get the solution for the problem statements that were mentioned by Luke, how we can digitize our internal transport operations. So starting with, I'll be giving you the overview of the solution, and then we'll be deep diving into the solutions one by one. To begin with, as rightly mentioned, the logistic vertical is currently facing one of the major challenges to track the third-party vehicles, which is becoming very painful for them. So we have come up with new visibility solution wherein we can track the third-party or market vehicles using the FASTag for the long-haul transports. The another problem statement that Luke already mentioned is sourcing the quality fleets outside your regular network is again a challenge currently with all the manufacturing companies or other related logistic verticals. So for that, we have come up with a new loads solution which can provide you with the good quality fleets, vehicles, and competitive pricing as well from our network, and you can also pay us directly or via your own broker. The third challenge is at the warehouses or plants where you want to get the information about the incoming vehicles that are coming into your plant or moving outside your plants. Currently, at most of the plants, this is done manually, and it's a kind of slow process. Over there also, we have come up with a solution which is known as Newgate, which is again is based on FASTag, and this can automate the process as well. And I'll request Luke now to describe all the solutions in detail, one by one, and then followed by demo as well.
Sure, yeah. So in here, focus on each solution. So at the base of everything, we've got our visibility solution, primarily based on toll data. So for long-haul logistics, especially for bulk cargo, toll-based tracking is emerging as an easy, seamless, low-cost option to track the movement of vehicles. It also is a very secure option, as quite often the truck driver, which may not necessarily be open to being tracked, is able to be tracked, cannot interfere with the tracking mechanism itself. Underlying this system, it's very straightforward the way it works. When a vehicle intersects a toll station or a toll plaza, and when those plazas are connected to our network, we get a location. We are able to then track these vehicles across the country doing so. So this currently works across the entire FASTag network, as well as a few FASTag stations on the entire national highway network, as well as a few FASTag stations on some of the state highways. And we are continuing to expand upon the solution in partnership with a few fellow startups in the industry to add to this GPS-based tracking as well as SIM-based tracking, which we currently already have. For the purpose of today's webinar, we're highlighting the FASTag-based tracking, as this is not commonly known yet in the market. It's available. So this solution we already have in use in the industry by one of the largest copper manufacturers and producers in the country, and as well as a few other players, and quickly expanding from there as both a primary solution to track the whereabouts of cargo, as well as a secondary solution to track the security of cargo in addition to existing tracking mechanisms like GPS or SIM-based tracking. Sumit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up in this solution set that we have, it's important to note that the way we've gone about building up our company and our solutions in the market is through partnerships. That model has worked really well for us, and we've had the opportunity and the good fortune to find wonderful clients and partners over the past few years. New Loads is one such solution which we built up in partnership with ICICI Bank. So we were serving the customers of the bank over the years, and we launched a solution that allows our customers and our shippers and manufacturer partners to plug into this network currently of ICICI Bank to be able to source vehicles. So for the purpose of RFQs, for the purpose of pricing discovery, or for the purpose of actual spot load matching, partners on our network can post their requirements over to the New Loads platform, either via API or via our web portal. These loads get syndicated over to the entire network that we have between the ICICI network as well as our own. Very importantly, the way we structured the system is that rather than trying to become another load board or a digital freight forwarder, we focus purely on being a marketplace, which means we don't actually handle any payments. We only facilitate the transaction. What this means is that we do not eat into the commission or the margin that would normally be had by a broker. And so you are able to compress the price as a shipper or a large transportation team and pay directly either through your own methods or through your BA or your broker, okay, who is typically willing to handle such payments at a reduced margin than they normally would when the vehicle is not sourced to them. So we're seeing very good success with this this platform, including working with the largest 3PL in India for several of their RFQs for major manufacturers in the space. Yeah. And finally, this is one of the most exciting opportunities right now that have opened up for us atop the FastTag ecosystem that we built up. So we invested heavily over the past few years. We had to actually reform a lot of our original platform, and went to a transformation about 2 years ago, where we invested heavily in what is becoming the future of digital payments for the automotive world in India, which is FastTag. And those investments have led to us now being able to also offer solutions where, for example, at a port or at a yard or a warehouse, the identification of vehicles can be handled purely via FastTag. So this reduces a lot of the manpower requirements on the ground, a lot of human error on the ground, a lot of waiting time on the ground. Typically, there's a lot of paperwork, forms to be filled before tags were issued. With this new system in place, vehicles can be identified at the gate. They can be detected when they are going to arrive at a particular location, because we can predict approximately their arrival time, which means we can also help to predict the traffic at a particular location. And importantly, because of the plugin with the actual financial aspect through our fintech vertical, fees can also be deducted, for instance, for entry fees at ports or for parking fees at particular locations, as well as for detention fees, if not detention fees, sorry, but parking fees if vehicles are staying over time at a particular location. So we're seeing a lot of interest from this solution, and also used on the ground by one player already a few years now, 2 years now in the early days. So this is one of the big advantages, especially for large manufacturing players with large facilities with a lot of vehicles moving in and out each day. Okay. Yeah, Sumit? Yeah. So, of course, there's a lot that the platform can offer and a lot that we can do. And importantly, I'd like to also point out that many of the solutions we have today were ideas from our customers once upon a time, and in collaboration with them, we realize these opportunities and pursue them. So there might be opportunities that you see or use cases that you see that we don't currently have that can be built atop some of the data that we do have. And we're more than happy to have a discussion later in the meeting about these. I'll walk you through a demo of the toll-based tracking solution because it's the one that gets a lot of the interest from us lately. It's different from what's been in the market for quite a while. I'll just share my screen and take over. So this is our toll-based tracking solution. Within the solution, one can enter a license plate number of a particular vehicle. As an example, I will just I've already have some preloaded over here. So the way this works again is all you need to do is plug into our API or leverage our dashboard. And as and when we have data coming in from the tolls that we partnered with, that becomes visible through the portal or through the APIs. Okay. So again, this depends heavily on the actual movements and activity that the vehicles have gone through. Okay. For some toll plazas in the country, we don't have full coverage yet, and we're continuing to build this out. But predominantly, we have at least about 40% of the vehicles easily covered 100%. And for the rest, based on certain plazas, we continue to work on, which we should complete by the end of this year. They can be also tracked. Okay. So this solution, once again, is no heavy investment, no major investment requirement or hardware requirement, no on-ground deployment requirement. It's just an API that can ride atop your existing tracking systems. You can plug into your existing ERP. It's important to note here that we do not share any data without the permission of the fleet owner or the driver. This is important because they must give the vehicle owner must give the authorization for the information to be shared. But for this as well, we have a standardized process for how we collect the consent and record the consent so that data can be legally shared from the vehicle to the shipper or the transportation team. Okay. In addition to this, baked into the solution, and one of our other solutions is also the new loads system. So within new loads, again, your requirements can be posted either directly from your ERP over to our network. These requirements get posted to our entire network of our fleet network, as well as further to our network of freight marketplaces. So once again, we've been fortunate to have built relationships over the years with various freight marketplaces in the country. All of us were small startups at the time. Quite a few of those have grown over the years, and now we are seeing this collaboration happening between the marketplaces, which is the ultimate form of digitization currently, since this allows greater coverage across the country. So these are some of our newer solutions. Of course, we've got other solutions as well, which I don't have a demo for right now, but the focus being on being able to leverage the supply chain data that we have for the other use cases that we have in the market. And one such example might be the supply data that we have and how it may relate to pricing. So because of the sheer volumes of supply data on our platform, this can be run against your existing pricing data to identify the impact it may have on your overall pricing and your needs for optimizing your pricing. So once again, I'll say the opportunity here is about us as a tech company or a tech startup building certain tools and collaborating with customers as a method to design the tools required to take to the industry. Another metaphor for this is a lot of the large tech-driven logistics companies. So these are basically logistics companies who have heavy tech investments from VCs. They have built these data pipelines and they've built these investments in technology and in data themselves. What we strive to do as a technology player for logistics companies is to be able to provide those same types of data and those same types of tools to our customers and partners, so that the entire market can evolve and digitize. Over to you, Sumit.
Thanks, Alok, for showing us the demo. Moving forward, so concluding the session, Luke, can you go take the key takeaways now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of key takeaways, what I'd like to say is that the market is obviously digitizing, and we all know this. But the real opportunity to take advantage of digitization is to recognize that it's not just software; it's also the data sources that you build access to. And one thing to understand is that, as you see in the tech companies in the consumer space over the last 10 or 15 years in India, as well as the last 20, 30 years abroad, there's been a heavy emphasis on building access to data and then building solutions on top of that data. And if there's one takeaway I'd like you to take from today is that building access to data will become the differentiator in your pricing strategy, in your supplier attraction strategy over the next few years. It may not be the key driver today, but the thing about data is that you can't build a data pipeline overnight. It takes time to get there. Of course, we can build access to certain types of data through players like us, so that expanding that market reach through a company like Numadic and many other interesting companies in the Indian tech ecosystem of the supply chain world also exists. So understanding what data will help you to improve your performance, turnaround times, and pricing is important, and then starting to build those relationships, build the partnerships with those companies at an early stage, build up that data set for the years ahead, start moving from retrospective analysis to real-time analysis to prescriptive analysis is really important. And finally, of course, in many ways, this data will become a moat. So the knowledge of a particular lane, a particular fleet, of a particular type of area or a port, all of this, when currently this knowledge and information is stored in the minds of the wonderful people that work at many of these organizations, many of them on the ground level. But for the central organization to truly capitalize on this and to capitalize on this in a manner that is scalable, requires a lot of that knowledge to be transposed from the mind to a central resource. And this is the big difference we see with, for example, a company like Sender in Germany or Convoy in the US. It's the centralization of data is key. There are sources of data everywhere, and the centralization of data is what gives them the competitive edge. Likewise, we believe that the transportation teams of Indian manufacturers and large shippers, as well as 3PLs, will also be able to compete very strongly, as long as the pipelines to data are secure.
So now you must be having a question, say, why to go with us? So as mentioned earlier, we have been working on logistics side since many years. We do have the domain expertise with good 15 plus years of experience of delivering real business outcomes. We always keep transparency with our customers about all the processes and keep very simple pricing. We deliver end-to-end solution and services, so you don't have to worry about anything else or go to any other partner. Thanks a lot. These are our credentials. You can get in touch with us. As the next steps, we can get in touch, conduct a workshop for your organization, and show you the demos in detail. And if you want, we can customize the solution as well, as per your requirement.
Welcome. Thanks, Pranav, and thanks everyone for your time today. Looking forward to connecting later. Thank you very much.